Episode 10.
Pew, pew, pew.
One decade. One calendar decade.
That audio. That was pretty accurate, actually.
That was good.
Thank
He's
you.
a soundboard guy.
Yeah. Oh, there it is.
Got
nice.
it.
Yeah, that's
It's a party.
uh,
KJ, do you feel like feels like it's more episodes because you have to do, or you've done so much more with the actual episode, doing editing and things? Do you think that makes it feel a little bit longer?
I do feel like I'm repeating myself a lot because I don't remember. Did I say this? Did I edit someone saying this? Did I talk to you specifically about this, or was it another person?
and then the same clip 10 times.
Well, it's not 10 times, but the fact that I edit the audio and the video for the food portion separately as well, so it's slightly different cuts if you listen to it versus watch it. Yeah, I do sometimes feel like I'm going insane, just a little bit. It's the most ridiculous sound.
We need to get some of that in these subsequent shows.
I'm not gonna do that.
You're listening to the Janchi Show, hosted by 3 Korean American adoptees diving headfirst into what it means to be adopted, Korean American, and more. And now, here's your hosts, Nathan, Patrick, and KJ.
Welcome to the Janchi Show. I am 1/3 of your hosts, KJ.
I'm Patrick.
I'm going to wait for KJ to edit out that long pause.
You're the worst.
And add another long pause in.
I'm Nathan.
Oh my gosh. That was
Kidding.
awful. I'm going to leave that in now.
No, let's
I
not-
would leave that one.
No, we should actually figure out. Should we figure out an order so that we always do it? I mean,
No, I like the
No.
randomness.
you like the randomness?
Yeah.
No.
I'm going to get better at looking at both of your faces
yeah, I
at the
know.
same
Patrick,
time.
what does Janchi mean?
Janchi means a smattering of different things. It means a feast. It means to celebrate. It means to come together in a big group and to eat a lot of food together and to enjoy yourselves. And that's kind of what we try to do here on the show. We get together and we celebrate who we are and what we're trying to do while also enjoying some nice food and beverage.
Janchi it up.
Yeah, Janchi it up.
Janchi Heyo.
Hey.
That's a new hashtag. Janchi Heyo.
Well, actually, so I don't know if you know this because I don't know where your Korean study is at, but hada is the infinitive of like to do, and basically any noun that you can know about in Korean, if you add hada to the end and conjugate it, it means like to do that thing. So janchi, noun, party. Janchi hada is to party. So janchi heyo is party.
Okay.
Like the
I
verb
like it.
party.
I like
But yeah,
it.
you could also put Heyyo. Janchi heyo.
That's what I thought you were saying.
I
Oh
like
yeah,
the dual
But
meaning.
it's just a brief description of how Korean works.
Nice.
Actually, one of my
End the
international
show every time
friends,
with that.
yeah, one of my international friends from China asked me, or I don't know if he asked me this or he was just telling me a joke. But the joke was basically like him and his Chinese friends were like, yeah, anytime we want to sound like Koreans, we just add hamnida to the end of our sentence. So like, oh, hello hamnida. How are you doing hamnida? Because to their ears, they were like, every sentence ends with hamnida. But it's because of that hada, that's like the formal conjugation of hada is hamnida. So it actually is fairly accurate to how Korean works. It's just really funny. They're like, hello hamnida. And so I'd be like, every time I saw him, I'd be like, how are you doing hamnida? Like, oh, I'm good hamnida.
I feel like that's with like Japanese when a lot of sentences to me sound like they end in deska.
Yeah, well, in Korean and Japanese are both like the verbs come at the end. So you literally just have to wait until someone says a verb to be like, I think I know what you're going to say. And then it's the verb. It's so confusing to listen and translate in your brain because you're like, what are you about to say?
Because you're just like
it could be like-
restructuring the sentence as it's coming out in real time.
Yeah, it's like pronoun, subject, and then they also have this weird thing where there's like a subject and a topic, and I don't really know what the difference is, but there are word endings, so it's like you add this to say like this noun was the subject, but it's different than like direct objects and indirect objects because they also have those in Korean. It's so confusing, and I think that's what makes learning the language like really confusing because I'm like, I need someone to explain this grammar to me because the way that the blocks work is so backwards from my English speaking brain. So
Yeah, I feel like it when I look at it and think about trying to learn it, it just looks so uninviting. I guess like looking at it itself it's nice. It's like I want to learn how to do that, but then just hearing you talk about these different things, I'm like, okay, I'm already 30. I'm gonna be 90 before I even figure out how to have one word down.
hada,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
add
yeah.
hamnida.
Yeah,
I've just
All
been
right.
worried about the pronunciation, not even the structure of
I know.
sentences or things like that, but the little minor minute, differences in a word or in a saying. I've always had that problem with other languages when I've said a word that I'm just pronouncing a word slightly different and it's completely different meaning.
Well, especially in this language too, there's such a distinction between formal and informal, and it's like you don't want to be disrespectful, and that's one of the reasons I try to hold back from even wanting to try a word. Nathan at least has the courage to try the word out, and I'm just like, I'll let him say it first, and then I won't say it anyways.
I think the nice thing though is we are all at an age where we can get away with one type of verb ending and feel pretty confident that like generally who we're talking to won't be super offended.
That's
and
true.
really especially if you're talking to someone younger, they might be like, why are you being so formal with me?
Yeah.
Like they would actually be like, you should talk down to me more.
That makes sense.
So we're 10 episodes deep and we have talked about a range of things. We have had some guests on the show who especially like, for instance, Dan. In my mind, I was like, we're never gonna get him on the show, and he was gracious enough to come on, and Minju from Fluent Korean. Just like, I don't know, did you have any sense of nervousness about our guests or about how the show would take place in general? Just because we haven't met each other, and then where we are now.
I think we touched on it at one point where maybe we were not recording at the time, but I know you mentioned saying something about being nervous before each show sometimes because all these people are so much more knowledgeable or in the subjects that we're talking about or just in the Korean journeys that they've taken themselves. That's what makes me nervous is the same thing. It's like saying something stupid or saying something that's like completely inaccurate. And so when we listen to all these people, I'm like, oh, wow, they're so, not just well spoken, but they're knowledgeable and everything. That's what intimidates me, and I've been very honored to have listened and learned from every one of our guests.
Yeah, I feel kind of the same way. We have people on, well, like even for us, having never met before, but now we're interviewing total strangers and asking them maybe not so much intimate details of their lives, but for topics that could be considered intimate to oneself, and for them to be able to share that and to feel like, not that I'm walking on eggshells in these interviews, but to feel like, like exactly what Nathan said, not wanting to say the wrong thing or stick your foot in your mouth, say something that you might regret. It's
That's what editing is for.
Exactly. But I think it's just really, it's really interesting, and I think when we have guests on, like for me specifically, when it's someone that I know and I get a chance to maybe either interject or to lead, it's a little bit more natural. I feel like it, and it's easier for me. But especially in those moments, like with Dan, especially, this is somebody who people know and is very recognizable, and for him to come on before we even hit double-digit episodes and to share his story with us, I think it really speaks to what we thought about doing when we first met up, and then to have actually achieved that in so many words and episodes, I think is really cool. So definitely still nervous, but I like where we're going, and I like what we've been doing so far.
So Nathan, do you think, I know that you've been on your journey for a little bit longer than either of us have, but how has doing this show for the past 10 episodes and kind of ideating around it and all of that affected how you relate to being Korean?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes me feel more, I wouldn't say authentic, but it makes me feel more like that I'm actually taking the time to learn about what I've kind of been going through already by myself. And I think that's something that everyone does on their own pace and at their own level, and you don't have to do it, and you don't have to search for your biological family, but at the same time, you don't have to learn anything about your culture if you don't want to. I mean, we're all still American, and that's a culture in itself. We could just say, I'm going to learn
unless
about...
you're Minju. Minju's not American.
That's right. But you could learn about whatever culture you are, whatever nationality you are, and that would be great. So I mean, or you could be like Minju and speak 5 languages. So and that's to each their own. So I really have enjoyed diving into more of everyone's story, because it does make me feel that what I did was validated a little bit, because other people might want to do it, or other people have done it, and so I don't feel alone that I was the only one doing it. And it's it's good to share my story, and I'm happy it was a happy story, and hope it helps other people. I mean, even when I did that article many years ago, and just the interview that the writer put in the magazine, and just doing that, I felt was a good start, and I was hoping that it would help other people.
Yeah. Patrick, what is maybe one thing from our conversations that we've had that's really stuck out and that your brain has held on to since having that conversation with whoever guessed?
I think Sujin Pate's just entire story of going back, and how vividly she could recall those memories of meeting those neighbors from her village that she was born in, and walking these paths and crossing the not so scary and large river that seemed like it was at 5. I think that's something that's really stuck with me, because that was our first guest, and I think not knowing what to expect going into that really did it left a big impression on me. And not that I am expecting something like that from every guest, but it's like, it makes these interviews very, very fun to be engaged in, because you're waiting for something like that, or in the course of our conversation, something like that is going to come up, whether it be about your birth family or whatever the case may be in your life. But there is one other thing that did stick out to me, and it might be recency bias, but what Liat said about compassion and love, I think that's just been something that's been playing over in my mind a lot. And I hope that a lot of people get to listen to her episode, because I think the way that she articulates that message is really powerful, and it has a lot of staying power too. And I think the more people are able to hear that, the better off that we will be. So I think those two things for sure.
I found I feel like my brain is changing. So in 2015 and then again in 2020, I feel like I was hyper aware of being Asian and maybe even Korean American, right? That with some of our guests, we've had this distinction of like, do you feel Asian American? Do you feel Korean American? And, different guests have had different answers. And so I feel like I've gotten better at thinking about myself as a minority living in America and all that entails. And I've come to understand kind of the burden and the mental taxing that can create in your brain. But now doing this podcast, I feel like I've begun to more fully understand and accept and navigate the waters of my third culture being adopted. So I was chatting with Minju on Instagram because I was excited for her next episode of Fluent Fools to drop. And I was like, hey, when is that coming out? Because I want to know more. But we got to talking, and in the midst of that conversation, I realized, oh, you know what? My Korean name might not actually be given to me by my parents. And I just kind of had this wild sense of like, oh my gosh, what if this whole online persona and kind of other part of my identity that I have carried around for my whole life is based in not the truth that I thought that it was, And so I had like this weird identity crisis, and then kind of a reclamation of being like, well, even if that wasn't the case, I'm still going to own that. And Kang Jun-tae is still like really, really important to me. Like basically since I've had an online presence, I have used some form of my Korean name, going from my AOL screen name as Kang the Fang up to like most of my emails and like gamer tags being some form of Juntae. So yeah, so that's just been interesting, and I found myself thinking about being adopted and hearing all of these adoptee stories and following the hashtags on Instagram and being parts of these groups makes me realize, well, it's not, maybe you can't take everything for granted, but it's become a space of like really powerfully and viscerally claiming parts of my identity as my own, regardless of who said what about me or who decided what about me, so it's been an interesting journey of exploration for me too. And our next guest is no different. And I'm actually really excited about this because this was our first guest with a family member. It is Rebecca Armstrong, as I'm sure you can tell from the title. And so we got to sit down with Patrick's sister and talk to her about being adopted and Asian American or Korean American, and just hear the things that make her who she is, catch up with her and see where her life is at now. So here is that interview right now.
Roll clip.
Do the thing. Okay, yes, we are here with Rebecca Armstrong, who is Patrick's sister via adoption. And we're very excited because this is the first time that we've had a family member on for the interview portion. So welcome, Rebecca, to the show.
Well, thanks for having me.
So let's start this with the question that we ask all of our adoptee friends.
What dirt do you have on Patrick? Oh.
Whoa. Yikes.
Came in hot.
Terrifying.
Hot. H-O-T.
What's happening? I was like looking at my notes and he just comes in, what dirt do you have on Patrick? Yikes.
Well,
yeah.
I thought it was funny because you said, what we ask all our guests.
No, it was great. It
was a good setup.
Was super not.
It was, I had to do okay. Continue.
Okay. What is your adoption story in as brief or as much detail as you want to tell?
So I have a pretty normal, I guess, adoption story. I was given up at birth by my birth mom was a student. That's written in my file, which I think is interesting. And I was adopted 3 months later by my parents through Bethany Christian Services, who had already adopted Patrick through the same agency. And it was Holt in Korea. But that's basically what I know about that.
So what was growing up with Patrick like? And also just generally growing up in America for you? What was that like?
I have a really cute story from when I was the day I was adopted. So I came to America via Detroit, and my family went up to pick me up. It was a plane full of other Korean adoptees as well. Probably not full, but there were other Korean adoptees on the plane. And when I was given to my family, I refused to let anyone hold me except for Patrick for hours. If anyone else tried, I cried really, really loudly. So he held me the whole way from Detroit to where we lived in Rensselaer because I refused to let anyone else hold me.
And he didn't drop you?
That's a lot of responsibility for a 2-year-old, I feel like.
Right? Just toddler Patrick taking care of an actual baby.
I hope they got photos of that.
So Patrick, you were 2 when Rebecca was adopted? Oh, he didn't even hear the question. So Patrick was 2 when you were adopted?
No, 1.5, I think.
It would have been 1992 in October.
Oh, yeah. I guess it was. Oh, yeah, 2.5. Almost. Yep. Yeah.
That's how
2
time
and 7
works.
months. I got it. I got there. I got there.
But when we were little children, we were really close. I remember when I was toddler, preschool age, I wanted to be able to do everything that Patrick could do. I wanted to go to school. I wanted to be able to run around whenever I wanted to instead of taking naps and all of this. So I just kind of copied him a lot. And I actually made my mom enroll me in preschool when I was 2 because I wanted to go to school like Patrick.
I wish I would have kept that same want to attitude about it. That you held on to that though, so.
Yeah, I was just a nerd at age 2. I was I want to go to school and I want to learn how to read. And then when we grew up, we had a lot of the same life experiences, obviously, but we kind of grew apart. And then we didn't really talk when we were teenagers, at all. And I remember the first time as adults that we hung out was in 2016 when both of us were just in California at the same time, and we're hey, we should hang out. You're in LA. I'm in San Francisco, or back, not San Francisco, San Diego. He was in San
I was
Diego.
like, that's
I
not at
was
all
in
close
San
to each other.
Diego.
Yeah.
But we were like, oh, we're both here. And I was considering moving to LA, and he was living in San Diego. And I was like, oh, we should hang out. So he drove up to visit me, and we hung out for a day. And then I went down and visited him for like a day and a half. And that was cool. But like, I was very cognizant of the fact that I was like, this is like the first time we've hung out as adults that whole time. And I was like, I don't know. What if I'm like not the person he thinks I am? What if we have nothing in common?
It was like that, though. I mean, I think I said it before. It's really because even though we were only 2 years apart in age, we were 4 years apart in school because of the age rule or whatever, however they do that for public schools, the cutoff. So that I felt like that really kind of divided us a little bit more than it potentially could have.
Yeah, because you were a senior in high school when I was like a freshman in high school.
Yeah.
So like that was the only time we were like really in the same school.
Yeah.
Well, and it takes a special kind of senior/freshman to like hang out with the outer edges of high school like that. So I can get that you're like, yeah, I don't really want to hang out with you right now. When you were younger, you said you were like super attached to Patrick, wanted to do everything that he did, which I think partially is probably just like younger sibling syndrome.
Yeah.
So when you separated, this is a weird way to ask this question, but like as you stopped hanging out, as you started growing apart, and obviously like being a teenager is like finding it's such a weird time because I feel like if I had to sum up teenage years, it's like figuring out that you're your own person and then desperately wanting to find people who are exactly like you to be like, I'm my own person with this other group of people and we're all the same but also very different, which I think is it's a weird time for adoptees to go through because you're like, I desperately want to be with people who are like me. But then when you're adopted, and especially transracially adopted, you're like, no one is like me. But I'm curious, did you think about or have you thought about now, in this instance, that separation from Patrick as like was that ever a thought that occurred to your mind? Like, was it a conscious thing or is it just kind of a natural like drifting apart as you grew up?
I feel like it was more of a natural drifting apart because our interests kind of diverged. When we were in like upper elementary school, I guess. Like
he was a skater boy and you said, see you later, boy.
Yeah. And I actually did ballet too. So
you did do that.
Yeah.
Boom.
It sucked. I hate ballet. But yeah, so our interests diverged. I went the more like quiet, nerdy kid. He went the more like class clown, plays sports kind of thing.
I did get voted class clown as a senior, so
yeah,
that tracks.
That tracks. Again, like we were always in kind of different schools after the point where we started drifting apart. So it's not like we saw each other a ton aside from living together. But also Patrick was always doing things. So he was always at like sports and had like other things. He was at his friend's house and I was like at home reading books quietly.
All right. So what are your top 5 books? Just because
that's a terrible
for those of you who are
to ask anyone who reads books.
Look at all those books back there.
No, that's
I know.
what I was
How
going
am
to say.
I supposed to choose?
Yeah. So just top 5. I'm going to say right now. Top 5 books right now.
Okay, so the Broken Earth series by N.K. Jemisin is really high up there. It's a fantasy series. Highly recommend. So that's 3.
No, I mean, I'll
like
allow it as 1. I was like, the series is 1. Like, that's a true reader. You're like, this is my top series. And then
this is going to sound like egocentric, but Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, if that's how you pronounce her name. I've only seen it. I've never heard it pronounced. Mexican Gothic, that came out this year and I loved it. I'm gonna say that's 5.
Okay.
I like it. She's using the series as 3. That's smart.
Yeah. Okay, each individual one of those books won Hugo Awards, and they're all amazing. So I feel like they can stand on their own.
So yeah, they probably deserve to stand on their own. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'm really excited. I know one of our previous guests, Brandon, is a little nerdy, just based on the time that we hung out together. But like, I never feel like I get the opportunity to really, truly and deeply nerd out because Patrick is my co-host. So I feel like I kind of have to like bro up a little bit.
What? I don't have any books on this bookshelf. They're all comic books. Let's get nerdy.
Exactly. So, but it's different. It's different. So, and I,
And all
Nathan, I
I
have
know
no
is
idea
movies.
what
I just
your
know movies.
Yeah.
I don't read words in books.
perfect. In your guest form, you said that you kind of leaned away from other Asians or other Black, Indigenous people of color because you felt fake or quote unquote whitewashed. So what? How did you reckon with that? Was it just like a complete and total like, nope, just whatever. I'm just gonna dig into my books and people who like these books. And where have you come to with that now? I guess.
So most of that, because I grew up in a very, very not uh, diverse town. It was very white. There was Patrick was the another Asian in my town. There was the family who ran the Chinese restaurant in our town, who I did know because their daughter went to dance classes at the school that I taught at, and there was one other Asian girl around my age in town, and people constantly got us confused, and we look nothing alike.
No.
So I kind of like,
Like, she's 6'4" and I'm 4'8".
she was
I don't know how tall
very
you
much
are,
shorter than me. She parted her hair like very extremely on one side and had that like emo swoop
Oh yeah,
because it was
nice.
about that time, you know.
Yeah.
And she was like really fit because she was in sports and all this sort of stuff, and I was like super chubby in high school. So like we looked nothing alike, and but people always got us confused, and I like resented her for that, even though it was not her fault. It was everyone else's fault. And then the same thing happened to me in college with this girl who I became friends with named Corinne. Both of us had like the same length hair and had glasses and were Asian, but we again looked nothing alike, and people got us confused. And that's just a certain type of annoying when like people just can't tell you apart or refuse to tell you apart, and you just kind of want to not associate with people who might be confused for you or you might be confused for, because it's just kind of really annoying. But I had a Korean roommate my first year of college, my first semester of college, like actually from Korea, like legit Korean person. And
They were deeply Korean.
I I felt super strange around her because I was like, yeah, I'm Korean too. And she's like,
Are you though?
That was perfectly timed, like head tilt. I wish that was recorded right there. That was great.
sorry. But and then like we kind of got to know each other very little. But I'm super socially awkward and I have a hard time making friends. So we kind of just lived in the same space for that whole semester, and I low key hated her. Not for any like reason really. She did keep kimchi in our dorm room fridge, which like was between our beds, and that was an unpleasant experience.
As we've learned, kimchi seeps out and affects everything in the fridge. So
We have learned
Yeah.
that.
Exactly.
well, the smell does. The kimchi doesn't seep out
Yeah.
unless it's poorly
That's a
packaged.
good clarification.
Or alive.
Yeah.
And we also lived in like a dorm without air conditioning because I registered for college late and like all of this stuff. And it was just by the end of the semester, I was like, I hate this person. Not really. It was just like my first time living with a roommate. So I went to the housing office and I was like, hey, I want to see if I can get a solo room next semester. I just cannot handle this right now. I'm going to kill someone. And the guy, he was like, oh, what room number do you live in? So I gave him my room number and he was like, oh, are you Jae Young? And I'm like,
Oh.
no,
Yeah.
I'm not. I hate that person. I don't actually hate her. She was fine. She was just my first roommate.
But as an angsty teenager, you're like, "Gah."
Exactly. Like I was like, I thought I moved away from all of this. And I was really mad, and I know he could tell. And I'm like, excuse me, I'm Rebecca. And then he gave me a discount off of my dorm for the next semester. So I think he knew what he did. And like even now, I don't really have that many non-white friends. And I live in a really white area again. I live in Salt Lake, Utah. So it's not like I have like many opportunities, I guess, especially again, being someone who doesn't easily make friends. So most of my friends I have now are people I have worked with or people that my husband was friends with before I moved here. And all of them are white people. But I have been trying to diversify my circle, I guess, because especially this year, I've noticed that not having friends I can relate to on a kind of like being a minority level I've definitely felt that I don't have friends I can talk to or relate to about this. And I feel like Patrick and I have been talking a lot more, which has been helpful. But I also like don't want to just constantly text him.
Did you guys talk in college?
Not really.
Yeah, not really. It really was like that trip to California, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
That was a good time.
So what took you to Salt Lake?
This is like a really cheesy story. I volunteered to work Sundance, the film festival here, in 2016 because like 2016 was about the year that like the first half of it was I was trying to find myself. I was doing that thing. I graduated early 2015 and then I did a contract job at Disney World until the end of that year. And then after that was over, I was like, I'm going to go do all these things. So I went to Las Vegas for CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, and reported on that. And then I came to Sundance because I had always wanted to go to Sundance. And I was here, like, I was in Salt Lake for a week before Sundance started. And I was kind of doing that thing where I was on Tinder trying to find people to take me to dinner because I was hungry.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I matched with Seth, who is now my husband, and we went out. We didn't get dinner. We got coffee, actually.
And you're like, but I'm hungry, though, Seth.
Can I get a muffin at least?
Just like a scone?
I remember judging him super hard because we went to a coffee shop, and I was at that point like a huge coffee snob because college. We went to a really nice local place that like roasts their own beans and stuff like that. So he got that part right, but then he ordered some like mostly milk caramel something. And I kind of looked at him like, what the heck? But yeah, it obviously worked. We like went on more dates while I was here. And then I went to China for a month because one of my best friends was working there as an English teacher. And we stayed in contact through that. I came back. I did a cross-country road trip with all my stuff to go to LA because I thought I was moving to LA. And then I got there and I hated it. And I was like, okay, so I was working 100% remotely doing like editing and proofreading for a medical company. And I'm like, I can do this anywhere. Like, where am I going to live? I don't want to move back to where my parents live. I could move to Chicago, but like, because that's where a lot of my friends are, but that's expensive. And then this guy I've been talking to this whole time was like, hey, why don't you just like wait here until you figure stuff out, I guess. So I kind of just like stayed. He was renting a room in a house, and I just kind of stayed in this room with him for like 2 weeks while I was trying to figure stuff out. And then I eventually rented a tiny house in downtown Salt Lake for a few months. And then I just really liked it here, and I really liked him. So I bought a house here, and then we got married. So that's it. Kind of just all fell into place. And then I found like 2 really good jobs that are entirely in my niche here. So that was nice too.
And what do you do now?
I am a tech reviewer broadly. Right now I'm writing internet service and home networking product reviews.
The pause was, I understood what she said. Okay, we're good. I'm there now.
She does professional reviews of merchandise on Amazon.
Not on Amazon.
Now she writes for TechCrunch, bro, and CNET.
Yeah, I actually used to read all those on CNET. I assume that's kind of similar as the stuff that you do at CES and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I the websites I write for are definitely not as well known as CNET, but I have thought about applying there, but they require everyone to work out of New York, and I don't want to do that.
Do you get to keep any of the free stuff you review?
Mm-hmm. Patrick's
nice.
gotten a lot of it also.
Oh,
I've given him some stuff.
I wouldn't say a lot of it. I would say some.
I like 3 things, maybe.
That's not very many things.
That's fair.
I don't even categorize that as a lot.
Are there big things? Are you just like kicking it with like a super great mesh network at your house or something? Like
No. I had some good headphones.
Yeah.
I
I've
don't have many
also
more,
gotten like several pairs of nice headphones.
What
It's
about
a lot of
podcast
headphones.
mics? Podcast microphones?
No.
If you
A
need
lot of
any
it was
beta
software that
testers for that, we can help you out too. And any podcast equipment, really, honestly. So.
Just anything.
Sorry.
Just anything and everything for the show.
Yeah.
Because for Patrick, of course.
Mostly it's routers right now.
I meant send it to Patrick, but make sure you send three or four of them to Patrick.
Yeah, just in triplicate, please, from now on.
Yeah.
Great.
So being attention to that part of it, how is it from your perspective? How do you see it out there? Other than specifically too, do you have other friends or other organizations that you're involved in that have any representation?
Okay, so the Salt Lake County area, like Salt Lake Metro, is a lot more diverse and liberal than the rest of the state of Utah. So there are other non-white people in the area. I don't really experience them that often. For example, I work on a team of like about 30 people at work, and we're like a fairly young, diverse organization, but I'm the only person of color on my whole team. And sometimes that's interesting. But most of my friends here are still white. A lot of people in the area are either LDS or grew up LDS. So it's kind of like a little bit monoculture-y here, which has been kind of difficult for me because there was a lot of culture shock, even though it's still in the US when I moved here. All of the laws around alcohol are strange still. There are a fairly high density of Japanese people specifically, or Japanese American people here specifically, for a very dark reason. That's because there was an internment camp, like a World War II internment camp around here. So there are organizations for like specifically like Japanese culture and then wider like Asian American Pacific Islander culture, but I haven't been like part of any of them. I'm kind of not a get involved type of person usually.
I hear you. I mean, even in Colorado, I didn't have any other Asian friends. Also, all my friends back there are also Caucasian. It wasn't really until California that it kind of was thrown into my lap as oh, this is what I've been missing, or this is just something different as far as the environment. So yeah, I'm just curious because I haven't lived anywhere except for California now for the last 19 years too. So I didn't know how different areas were expanding, especially major metropolises like Salt Lake and stuff like that.
One of my dreams is to move to like a very diverse city. I just want to live somewhere where there are more than just Caucasian people. Nothing against Caucasian people.
No, they're fine. They are the reason that the four of us are here in the States. So thanks for that. But so I really feel what you say when you're like, I am socially awkward and I want to meet more, like have a more diverse friend group, but the area that I'm living in is predominantly white. And how do I go about meeting not white people and not feeling like a straight up stalker or some type of creep, or so that's a struggle that I have had. So one of the fallbacks that I have found and taken great comfort in is I will watch or take in really diverse media. And I think a side effect of that is anytime I see a show that is predominantly white people, I'll just be like, can we watch anything else that is not predominantly white people? So I didn't know, like, is that a similar journey to you, or have you cracked the code for like meeting diverse people, like figured out where the underground not white people hang out, and you're like, yeah, can I break into this club or this well, actually no, you said alcohol laws are different, so it wouldn't be a speakeasy, but found the place where they congregate and like be like, can I hang out with you? Can we be friends?
Yeah. I do consume a lot of not Euro or American centric media. So one of the things that kind of like helped me grow into my general Asianness, let's say, because when I was growing up, I accepted that I was Asian more so than I accepted that I was Korean specifically, especially when I was younger. And being a nerd, that kind of led me into that whole like Japanese, like kind of weeby, kind of otaku area. Yeah, so I read a lot of manga and I like watched a lot of anime not growing up, but like in like upper high school and in college and like now. And a lot of the books I read, I've made a point this year specifically and last year to not read anything that was written by a Caucasian male author.
I love that.
because especially I was a literature major in college. Like I read so much of that already.
You're like, so every fantasy book, I get it. Like
Yeah.
there's great fantasy, but I get it.
Yeah. Again, N.K. Jemisin, she's a Black woman. She is amazing. She writes sci-fi and fantasy. Highly recommend. She's so good. I'm just like, I just came off the high of reading that trilogy and I just love it so much. But yeah, I've been more purposeful and deliberate in selecting what I choose to spend my time with, whether it's books or podcasts or movies or TV shows, because I never really got representation when I was younger. I think that's one of the reasons why I kind of pushed away from being Asian at first, because like my first true love in life was Harry Potter, the like whitest, most British thing. And
isn't Coldplay the most British thing? I don't know.
oh, that's fair. But like I grew up like obsessed with England, and that kind of broadened as I grew up into a general European thing. And then around like the middle of college, I was like, okay, so there's more to the world though. And I started trying to dive into more of that because again, most of the media, I guess, that I had consumed prior in my life was all written by Caucasian authors, had Caucasian protagonists and characters, and a lot of the movies I had seen prior to that had like one Asian character who was the quirky friend or the math genius. So, actually when I was in high school, I wanted to be an actress, and I like did voice lessons and acting lessons and dance lessons and all of this stuff. And I actually entered college as a theater major, but there was this whole thing going on in me because one of the things that happened during like talking about theater with some of my like other drama friends were like, oh, there are like three leading roles on Broadway that you could potentially get ever. One's like Elphaba, who is a person who is painted green the whole show. There is like flower drum song, Miss Saigon. And I was like, cool.
I see that I have chosen a poor career choice where I want to be.
Yeah, and it's like
yeah. If I'm not white, then I really don't have a lot going on. Or maybe like not white or black.
Yeah. And there wasn't like Crazy Rich Asians or Fresh Off the Boat or
Hamilton.
Exactly. There was none of that. Everything was just kind of like in my head, just kind of like against me being an actress. And I was
well,
like,
I mean,
okay.
There was like The Lion King and Shrek the Musical, right? So.
Wow.
Those are the only things where I can think of. Like, you're generally in costume the whole time, so it should be fun.
Yeah.
That's it.
Avenue Q, just puppets.
Yeah, there you go.
Cat outfit.
But I was just like, realistically, like my opportunities are super small, and being able to like make it as a performer is such a crapshoot. Anyway, I'm like, I feel like me wanting to do this is just the dumbest thing. So I ended up being a writer, which is great because in college I developed anxiety and I can't go on stage anymore. So that would have been a fun thing as a theater major.
It's a good tool to use. Anxiety.
Yeah. I let it fuel me to stay inside and read books.
Is it weird for you? Okay, so you're the second person who, the first one being Dan Matthews, who's expressed feeling Asian before feeling Korean. And for me, it was the opposite. Like I felt like deeply Korean, but then not really understanding what it meant to be Asian American. So, and then I saw in your notes that you have a cat named Sakamoto, which is, I'm going to say definitely Japanese. Like I know what I'm talking about. But like,
yeah, it's definitely Japanese.
It's definitely Japanese. So, is it weird now thinking about, you know, in light of all that your life has brought you to this point, thinking about being Korean and like kind of untangling, especially again, like in my own like similar journey to yours, coming from a very kind of generic, generally Chinese and Japanese dominated sense of Asian American, thinking about then like, so what is Korean and what does it mean to be Korean American for me?
So I feel like when I came to the whole like accepting of the fact that I was Asian, it was kind of more of a name I like told myself that was more like defined as other, as opposed to like actually tied to Korea, Japan, China. And it was kind of just, okay, I'm generally Asian. I didn't feel Asian American, really. I still felt like mostly I was white, but I was like Asian to look at. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I accepted fairly young that I was not white, and that I would always be kind of othered because of that in my town, at least. I remember actually the first time that it really hit me that I was like different from everyone around me, and it was in first grade. We were doing that thing where everyone's like, oh, I want to be this when I grow up. I want to be a fireman. I want to be an astronaut. And I was like, I want to be president. And my teacher was like, you can't. And I was like, what? And she's like, you weren't born here. And I was like, that's the worst way to crush a child's dreams. Now I'm like that. Then I was just sad.
Because your dreams were crushed. Now
Yeah,
that you've
'cause I was
moved
like-
on, you're like, that was a poor decision. I mean,
Okay,
it's
I
the
still think
reality
I should
of
be able
life,
to run
but
for
also,
president.
like, yeah.
Agreed.
Like, if not to be like super political, but if certain people who are in the race right now can run for president and be president, then I should be able to be president. I would never do it, but I should be able to.
I like how you navigated that answer. I don't think I could have done that. Very well navigated.
But so I accepted that I was different. I accepted that I was like vaguely Asian as an idea in my head, and I kind of like glomped onto that with as like an excuse to kind of be weird, let's say.
Okay.
Not that I need an excuse, because I am just kind of weird.
You mean like as a coping mechanism to be like, well, being Asian doesn't feel as natural to me as being whatever else. And so it can feel like if somebody is like, oh, that's weird, then you can like kind of deflect it onto being Asian because you don't hold that identity as closely to yourself, right?
Yeah, kind of like that. And then I accepted being Korean after being generally Asian, in the fact that I wasn't Chinese or Japanese. When people would be like, oh, you look Japanese, or oh, you look Chinese, I'm like, well, I'm Korean, so don't be racist. So that was like the second step to me accepting being Korean. And then it kind of came in waves of like Korean skincare in college, Korean food, K-pop. And then this whole like journey that Patrick's been on has kind of like drew me more into the identity of being a Korean adoptee specifically. I didn't really recognize that as an identity before, because it was always kind of like, well, I'm not quite all American. I'm not quite Asian American, because that's like, I feel like a specific set of like life experiences that I have no part of.
Yeah, I think we've all agreed to that too.
Yeah, it was kind of a whole thing coming full circle to Patrick finally accepting that he is Asian, Korean, etc. Which I feel like I tried to push him into a few times, but like
No, I definitely think you did. I think I said that before too, that you I think were always a little more connected than I ever was. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, still, I don't know, but you're also a lot more well-traveled than I am too.
I feel like I became more connected to Korean identity specifically and wanting to know more about Korea in college. And part of that started with my sorority big sister got a job teaching English in Korea. And I like jokingly said something like, well, you have the blessings of my people. And then I felt bad about it, because I'm like, I'm not really Korean though. Like, and then we would talk while she was in Korea, and she was like learning Korean. She was living in Korea. And I'm like, I had this whole breakthrough that I'm like, okay, so there's this girl, she's really white looking. She's in Korea. She knows way more about Korea than I do, and I feel sad about that. Not because I was like particularly jealous or whatnot. It was just like, did you ever have this experience where random Asian people just kind of like walk up to you and they're like, oh, are you Korean? Do you know Korean? Because Korean is in your blood. Has anyone had that experience? Because it's happened to me like multiple times.
I've never had an Asian person walk up to me and do that. or another Korean person. I've had other white people walk up to me and do that to me, though. In both, I think, sincere and unsincere ways. I think in both of those ways.
I've had like a weird amount, like possibly because of the travels, because I feel like none of this has happened like in Rensselaer, Indiana or whatever. But where I've run into Asian people, or like specifically Korean people, and they can tell that I'm Korean, and that they tell me that I need to connect with my Koreanness. Like, this has happened a lot, and I feel like that's weird. Specifically, one time when I was in Ireland, I was on like a paddy wagon tour where you just like get on a bus and they drive you around Ireland. And there was this guy on the bus who was Korean, could not understand the tour guide because of his Irish accent. And he decided that he could only understand English if I said it.
Wow.
That sounds very Korean.
Yeah, he like befriended me. He bought me lunch. He took a whole bunch of pictures at like the sites with me, and I don't have any pictures of him, and I'm really upset about that now. But he just like adopted me for those like 2 days, and he was like, you and I, we're going to sit here. Neither of us speak each other's languages, but I'm going to show you these souvenirs that I bought for my children. And we're going to take pictures together in front of waterfalls. And you need to learn Korean because it's in your blood.
Okay,
But
yeah, I get that. I feel like, in my experience, Korean immigrants or native Koreans, however I've experienced them, have been like, especially older Koreans. I feel like, and even in some of the headlines that I read and the stories that I hear of the Korean nationals and their sensibility towards Korean adoptees, there's always some sense of grief around it. And so I think that they all are like, making up for lost time, kind of. And so that, coupled with the kind of the, not familial, but like that sense of like communal sense of like, we're together now, like, right? And the same, like oppa, dongseng, or like uncle, auntie, whatever. The just sense of like, there's like a deep it's built into the language, like, of a deep sense of family. So like, to be an adoptee and then to meet like especially an older native Korean, they're like, I need to show you like my whole culture in however much time as we have. And so like my dad would, I think, just for free donuts when I was adopted, he would take me around to all of the Korean owned donut shops and like show me off. And then like he just kind of networks that way. So like, he loves babies. I was his baby. He loves donuts. And like, he's like, you're Korean. My son is Korean. Anyways, can I get some donuts? And so,
you guys should get to know each other.
Yeah. And so now when I go back to Dallas, there is a donut shop who is operated by Mrs. Kang. And so I'll go and see her, and like, she'll be like, oh, I remember you as a baby. Let's talk and whatever. And like, yeah, she still has that same sense of like, how's your Korean coming? Like, are you doing enough? Whatever. So
here's a donut.
Yeah, so I get that, like, there's like this sense of like, you need to be more Korean. Also, it's on me to show you, and we only have 5 minutes, but I'm gonna stock you full of however much Korean I can get you.
Now I wish I had a Korean donut shop where I was raised. Dang.
I know, we didn't have any of those.
No. Oh, I have a Korean bakery like 10 minutes away, so at least there's that. It's really good.
You're about the food, though, right?
Yes.
You've been doing a lot with the food.
Yeah. So, I went to Korea in 2016. This was part of that whole like finding myself thing. I did absolutely no like prep. I was with a friend. She was the one who was living in China. When I went to China to visit her, we took a week and went to Seoul and Busan. And I did no prep because she was planning everything, like transportation, lodging, all of that. So I just kind of like wandered into this vacation like da 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 da, and we did like all the touristy stuff in Seoul and had fun, ate Korean food. Like, that was my first time in Korea having Korean food, so that was great. Also, I realized that I like spicy food while in Korea. I had never liked anything with any sort of spice before that, and I was like, oh yeah, I could get behind this.
It's because it's in your blood.
Yeah. It's in my blood. And then I haven't really told this story because it makes me I feel like it makes me seem like really like head in the clouds. But we spent the first several days in Seoul, and then we went to Busan, which is where I was born. And we got there and like had all of our luggage and like got on a train or like a metro type of thing to go to our hostel, which was like way out in the middle of nowhere because college grad. And like a few stops onto the train, this guy walks into our car, and he just kind of looks at me and just kind of like stares at me, kind of looks confused, kind of maybe looks like he recognized me, and my brain just ran with that. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, why is this guy staring at me? Why does he look like he recognizes me? Do I look like someone he knew maybe like 20 years ago? And like my imagination just went crazy with that. And I was like, okay, Rebecca, you've been in Busan for like 20 minutes. Calm down.
Yeah.
But this guy, he just kept staring at me and just kind of like was looking at me, and he was like wearing tweed and was carrying a book, and like it was just this whole thing. And he was wearing glasses too.
Right up your alley.
Exactly. And it's
So
like he was like,
could have been my uncle or something.
exactly.
Or,
And I was just like, why do you recognize me, sir? And I just like, again, it was like my very first time in Busan. I had been there like 20 minutes, and I was just like, okay, maybe I should like look more into this Korean thing. Because if my brain is gonna like go crazy on that like little interaction, and he's probably just like nearsighted and couldn't see that well, and was just like looking at like maybe the map behind me or something.
Yeah, he was like, why won't she move?
Yeah.
I can't see where my stop is.
So after that whole experience, I kind of got more into general Korean stuff, like trying to learn like the surface level stuff. I've tried to learn Korean like 4 different times, and I'm really bad at picking up languages, so I haven't really gone anywhere with it. I like sit down, like try for like 2 weeks, like still can't remember the whole alphabet or whatever, and I'm just like, okay, I give up. It's gonna happen someday. It has to, right?
Yep.
Someday it's just gonna click, but it has not been yet.
I mean, or it's just you take 2 weeks every year, and then after 5 years, you're like, well, I'm much better than when I started. That's generally how I am. As I'm like, it lasts a little longer. Like for me, it's like maybe 2 months, usually around January, February times.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but so I'm like, I don't know. But then like looking back, like I've really been studying intentionally for the past 5 years for those first 2 months of each year. And I'm like, I'm much better at Korean now than I used to be. So
is your voice different when you speak Korean versus when you speak English?
Yes, kind of. Not my actual timbre of my voice, but my wife says that my mouth looks different. Like the way that I shape my mouth is very different because I think I have the visual of speaking to a lot of Koreans and practicing and just being like, oh, you sound so American. And be like, okay, well, I am American. So I'm like trying to get better. Like I want to sound like a proper Korean speaker. But then I think there's the perception of how Koreans talk. And so I have to like model, and especially after I was a vocal major in college. So after I started studying voice and like what goes into pronouncing whatever and all that. So I think that my pronunciation has got better. But yeah, so like my whole mouth shape changes. And we were talking to Minju on a previous episode who runs Fluent Korean, and she's like, my whole personality is different because of like kind of the constraints of the language. And so even I was chatting with her later over Instagram, and I would throw in Korean just to like practice that and whatever. But also there were times when I could interject the same thing in English, but it didn't feel quite right. So I think that there is kind of a mental shift going from English to Korean and then back. I'm like, I want to be really American and loud and whatever, but then I'm like, oh no, I'm like, I very much understand you. Thank you. You know, whatever about the Korean language. So yeah, all that to say, yeah, I think that's a little different. And this is just a fun aside because I'm hoping that we have him on the show soon. Jay Park, who's one of the co-hosts of MB Asians, I hopped on a Zoom call with him and I knew he was Korean. So I just jumped in and I said, 안녕하세요. And he was like, oh, and like it caught him off guard. And then he was like, wait, are you Korean? But like in Korean, I was like, no, bro. I just know how to say 안녕하세요. I know how native Korean. He's like, the way you said hello, I thought that you were native Korean. And I was like, yes. I was just like a real point of pride.
The ultimate accomplishment.
Yeah. I was like, that's the one word. And then immediately after that, it breaks into, oh, I'm very much American.
The Turing test passed in 1 second, and then it falls apart from there.
And then immediately failed.
I noticed when I like practice speaking Korean, my voice is higher. And also the episode you mentioned with Minju.
Yeah.
Okay. I was listening to that and I was like, oh man, I'd make a terrible Korean, because like she talked a lot about like filial piety and like that sort of thing and Confucianism, and I'm like, oh no, I do not respect my elders. Oh God. It's like I'm just sassy and disrespectful. That is what I am. I'd make a terrible Korean.
You get that from our mom, though, so not that she's so disrespectful. Love you, Mom.
My mom listened to the episode and texted me, "Where's my pair of underwear?" So
I don't think we've ever got our parents' underwear as a gift.
I don't think so either.
Christmas is around the corner.
That's true. I'm throwing them all the undergarments. Here you go.
yikes! It's like that scene from Elf. All right. Well, Rebecca, it has been wonderful chatting with you and getting to know you and your story. What besides the books, which I think that you should definitely plug again, what are some other things you can promote? Where can people find you on the internet, etc.?
Well, main thing to promote is Patrick and mine's nonprofit, All Times Are Local.
Yeah.
It can be found on Instagram and Facebook at All Times Are Local, and on Twitter at All Times the letter R Local. And most of my socials are on private because I am
Private.
the recluse. But I'm on Twitter at Becca Please. Underscore at the
Becca,
end.
please.
No, at the end.
Oh, it's at the end?
Becca Please underscore.
I was trying to help you out.
Dang.
Wow.
Keep them off your Twitter.
She doesn't need your help, Patrick.
I only have like 100 followers. I do not care if anyone else finds it.
But I mean, if you've got book recommendations, like I'm probably going to tweet at you and be like, "Hey, I need some non-white male authors to read.
Yeah.
Hit me up." So that'd be great. Cool.
Before you go, you gotta give us one good story about Patrick.
Oh gosh, I should have written these down.
What? I don't even know what good story you would tell.
I do know that him saying that he had never tried kimchi on the first episode was a definite lie.
What? What? When did I try kimchi before?
When we met up in California and I took you to a Korean restaurant for the first time and I made you try everything.
I kind of don't remember that. I kind of actually do remember going to the Korean restaurant now that you said that, but I don't remember trying kimchi.
Also, my
That is
wedding
a hot
rehearsal
take.
dinner was at a Korean restaurant.
But I didn't have any kimchi there.
Oh, well, that was your fault.
I know that for sure.
He took one whiff of that and he's like, "Nope, not for me."
I don't know if that's true. I don't like. No, I'm good. I just got fired. You just got me fired from the show. Filial piety, right there. Filial piety.
Amazing.
Dang it. Was that good enough, Nathan? Was that good enough for you?
I'll take that.
That's great. That is perfect.
Yep.
Well, speaking of foods that Patrick hasn't tried, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we will be trying 2 mystery items from Jerry's mystery box. So we'll be right back.
Welcome to the eat and drink portion of the Janchi Show. We're trying some mystery items today from our producer, Jerry Wan. He very graciously sent us a box of mystery items, and we are going to dig in today with our guest, my sister, Rebecca Armstrong.
Woo!
Hello.
Yes. Rebecca, you get the honor. Do we start with 3 or 5?
I still have mine completely in the box,
Oh.
so
Nice. Okay.
We get to watch
food
a
or
full
drink?
unbox.
What do you think we
Yes.
should start with?
Food or drink?
food.
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 All right.
I have no idea how to open this box. Okay,
Let's start with 5.
starting with 5.
Yep.
Ooh, it's a lotte. I can see.
Lotte.
can see that
And I can see
Margaret.
cookie.
Margaret.
Oh, this
Cookie.
looks so. This looks so
Little.
dainty.
It's like
Oh, it's probably one of my.
I know, it's like a
already in
tea
crumble
cracker.
list.
picnic thing.
I feel like I need tea.
Lotte Margaret cookie.
With parents'
out.
love.
Feel this love with a soft cookie.
Oh,
Feel
soft
this
cookie.
love.
I probably shouldn't have shaken this box so much. They're pretty crumbly.
Oh no!
All right, can we just talk about that slogan line? Feel this love.
I like
With
it.
soft cookie.
I don't know if I like that.
It's a little
Lotte.
creepy.
Isn't that a Lotte thing? Don't they have that on a lot of stuff?
I have
Feel
no
this
idea.
love?
Specifically, like the parents' love thing.
Maybe.
Isn't
I
that
don't know,
like that's really close to a Blackpink song? Like, right? Kill This Love.
Kill this love, yes.
So
Blackpink's
maybe
cool.
maybe that's like a play on like, you know how Lotte says like things like this. Anyways, I'm gonna open it at the open package.
This looks like a cracker almost. Like with
Oh,
these
yours
lines.
is in
Yours
good
is
shape.
intact.
Yeah, mine fell
job.
apart in the package.
Every time I try to pick it up, another piece falls off.
Yeah.
Oh,
See
it's
if I can-
falling apart.
I can tell you
This
what it
is
looks
the-
like on the inside.
Yeah.
It has a lot of
Crumbled apart.
nuts or
Check me
something.
out.
So hopefully
cool.
you're not allergic to nuts there, Rebecca. But
I
Oh, there's
am
a
not.
filling.
okay, there is a filling.
Like an apple or something?
Oh,
I don't know. Crumbling.
Oh, this is tasty though.
Yeah, I like this.
What kind
This
of nut
is like a
that?
vanilla wafer.
Yeah. Is there something in there?
Yeah. Like I said, there's a nut of some sort.
I cannot open this and eat.
That's
this
something I
raw.
found with these Korean snacks. Is like the ice cream. There's like the mochi in there, but there's always something else in the snack, like a
Maybe
crunchy
it's
or a chewy
oyster
piece,
shell.
or
Dude.
oyster shell, or 10% barley.
Yeah. So because mine fell apart before the other one in the package fell apart, you can see on the inside it's got a bunch of little nuts in it and stuff like that. So can't tell what kind of nut it is. I'm gonna assume
Maybe it's
hazelnut or
chestnut.
chestnut. Yeah.
Mystery.
Because this
nut.
tastes like the bumbar.
It tastes different than those for sure. I'm also really hungry, but this is really good.
It's made of balote.
Where are we going with this?
Anyways, this is really good. Yeah, it is really crumbly.
Very. I'm
That
gonna
is
have
good.
to-
I wish I had a box of these.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too.
No,
I would
you
say
did. They would have
that's
been
kind of
gone
the
last
one-
week.
That's like the
That's
blessing and the
true.
curse. It's the blessing of the curse of the mystery boxes. We don't get like the whole thing. So if it's bad, then you're like, oh, good. I don't have to like get rid of a bunch of these. But if it's good, you're like, wait, but I wanted more.
Yeah. I think Jerry's just giving us the good numbers. He's saving all the ones that might be bad for later. He's gonna like fool us. He's like, give you all the really good stuff first, and then all of a sudden we're gonna be eating all these things. Going, what is this?
It's like on
Only
Christmas Day,
oyster
you're like, let's
shell.
record a podcast, and it's the worst thing you've ever tasted.
Yeah, he's gonna trick us, or
It's gonna be a
maybe
peanut
he's not.
butter
Maybe he's
squid
gonna be a
thing.
nice guy and only give us good tasty
A
things.
peanut butter what?
A peanut butter squid thing.
Oh.
That's like a
Gross.
flavor combination in like Korean snacks. Peanut butter squid.
What?
Jerry, what's this peanut butter squid?
Holy
no way.
shirt
I have
balls.
seen a lot of like seafood related snacks at the Korean store, so I do know that there is potential for
I
dried
mean,
squid or
I
other
like
things
their
like
shrimp
that, but-
crackers. I don't know about peanut butter squid flavor though.
Yeah, I don't think I like squid.
Okay.
How many Margarets do you give these cookies?
I'm gonna say 3.5 Margarets out of the full Margaret.
Really?
Okay.
Wow.
Why only 3.5?
The full Margaret.
What's keeping it from going higher?
Kind of the texture, the fact that it just like falls apart. I did shake it a lot. So that's
I was
probably
gonna say it's
my
like that
fault.
might be user error.
Yeah.
But everyone else said that they were really crumbly too. So
Yeah. I didn't shake
mine.
mine.
Was kind of crumbly.
also like desserts and sweets are like my thing. Like my favorite thing. I
Oh,
bake
yeah.
a ton. So it's just
And you
Nice.
have your own baking Instagram, so
I
that's
do.
something you didn't plug.
I forgot about that, honestly. It's been a while.
You bake
I'm
for
going
real.
over.
That's the thing. You don't just bake.
Nice.
You bake for
So you
real.
say things like the sponge in this is so spongy.
Yeah.
That's how much bake talk I know.
Do you say that?
No, I'm not very technical. It's like if things taste good, they taste good. I'm
I
not
agree.
very good at presentation, but
I think
I
these
am big
taste
on
good.
texture, and like the texture didn't quite do it for me.
Mm.
All right.
There you go.
That's not a bad description. You could put that in a podcast episode, and the company would probably still sponsor you.
I'm gonna say I feel 4.5%.
Well, yeah. That's pretty high for you.
4.5
there,
Margarets
KJ,
of
for,
this Margaret love. Yeah.
for someone not liking sweets yourself. That's pretty high.
I think that's what it is. Like, I really have a Korean sensibility when it comes to sweets. Like, I don't want something like hyper sweet or, whatever. And so this is like really, really nice. I really like the chestnut flavor. I thought it was weird in the babambar, but in this, I think it's really good.
It's a good balance.
And it's the kind of like, it's the kind of a buttery cookie that doesn't leave my mouth super dry. You know, like I don't feel like I need to drink anything with it. Like it's properly, I think it's good. It is a little crumbly, but I'm going to say that that's on packaging, and maybe it's like an older cookie. Maybe it was born like a year ago. So I'm going to say 4.5.
Yeah, I agree. 4.5 for me too. I'm liking it. Yeah.
I was also going to give it a 4.5. And I would have gave it a 5 if it was larger in size. Because I feel like it's a snack pack size, and I want the 2 in the 1 package to be 1 cookie.
That's why you got the second package, though. Jerry knows what he's about.
Orion did a good job of putting all those crackers in there. There's like at least 10 in the Kosumi.
Oh,
Kosumi crackers.
There's like 10 of those in there.
That Kosumi crackers.
That was great too.
All right,
let's
dig into item number 3.
Right. What you don't need to wash it down.
I am thirsty. You don't need to, but I'm.
We about to. I hope
mine's yellow.
This is almost what makes me think of an ice cream bar.
I think I know what this is. It's banana juice.
It's banana milk.
Have you had it? Are you banana intolerant?
I am highly lactose intolerant.
Highly. Whoa. Well then, you might want to. Yeah.
Does it have lactose in it?
It's the number 1 ingredient.
Jared just said, "Oops."
Sorry, I forgot to mention that on the whole thing.
Well, you can just pretend to drink this one. Yeah.
Nah. I feel like a few sips aren't gonna hurt.
Go find some Lactaid real quick.
But I have had this before when I was not lactose intolerant.
Yeah, I've heard of this. It's called Bing Ray, right? Is that how you guys pronounce that? Bing Ray? I've seen it before.
Banana masuyu.
The ones I've seen though look like that though. They look little things. Yeah. They're not in a carton like this. So
yeah. Also, I was about to say the brand is Bingure, which I know that it's not written in the English, but in the Korean it's Bingure.
Korea's favorite.
Wonder if you have to shake
also, uyu is milk in Korean, and that's
uyu?
like easily one of my favorite Korean words because it feels so silly.
Uyu?
Yeah, uyu.
Uyu intolerant.
Okay. What?
That was actually one of the reasons why I started liking Korean food, is because I became lactose intolerant overnight, and then I was like, well, I guess
there's not a lot of lactose in Korean food besides their sweets.
So I started eating only Asian food.
Yeah, I will say I have had I think they use milks and things to make it sweet and creamy. So for desserts, that seems fine. Since starting the show, I have desperately wanted more and more just Asian foods in my life. So
I've wanted
so
more
banana.
Drinks. It's banana.
That is very banana.
It's banana milk.
It's banana flavored with a milk texture.
The cookie too.
Yeah.
I surprisingly don't dislike this.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a strong banana flavor, but
the banana also lingers for a bit, not badly, on the inhale. Mm-hmm.
This might be the
I feel
first
like I'm
drink
drinking
item.
a Laffy Taffy.
Yes, that's what it is. That's the flavor.
Yeah.
So
yes.
It's got that same kind of sits in your mouth.
Yes.
Which really grosses me out with a Laffy Taffy. But because I'm drinking it, I feel more okay with it.
It definitely has that aftertaste. Yeah.
I feel like this is the first drink that I couldn't chug all the way down.
What? Chug it.
I don't know if I can.
Do it. You can do it.
Especially out of this tiny straw.
Dude,
right,
if you can chug out of a juice box, then you did not do elementary school correctly. Patrick's face is just
good. He's our chugger.
That really is like Laffy Taffy. I was trying to put it on what it was. I could not think of how to describe it.
Yeah,
and that's exactly right.
Interesting. And it's not. I've had banana juice before on some Polynesian islands and stuff, and that's thicker. Definitely thicker. Mm-hmm. This is more just a banana flavored milk, even though banana is the 4th ingredient. Banana juice concentrate.
I feel like childhood me before I was lactose intolerant would have really loved this.
All right, so on the ingredients, the very first ingredient listed is milk. And at the very end of the ingredients list, it says in bold, contains milk. Like, please don't drink this if you are lactose intolerant.
Yeah.
I drank a
Koreans
very
are.
little bit of it. I felt like I had to. It was for the experience.
Thank you, and we're
Yeah,
sorry
thanks for diving
if there's
in.
any repercussions.
You got the cookies,
later.
so
You can blame
Yeah.
Cherry.
I'll make Seth drink the rest of it.
he'll probably
I
like
like
it.
that.
All right, I'm gonna give Bingore's banana masuyu 4.5 out of 5. This is a strong showing for food and drink. This is delicious to me
Because of the banana Laffy Taffy nostalgia, or because you just like that drink?
No, I just like it because I don't really like the banana Laffy Taffy at all. But this is good, and maybe it's because I had the cookie first. Then I'm like, oh yeah, this. I didn't need anything
That
to
might
wash
be.
it down, but I really like having this, and it's just like hits the spot.
I'm gonna have to say 4 out of 5 bananas. I like it, but yeah, I don't know. I also feel like I should have. I feel like I should have
like
refrigerated it
more
a little
talking.
bit more. But I do like it, the banana flavor. So I'm giving it 4 out of 5. I still think I like the milkus better.
Milkus.
Milky
Milkisu. I don't know why. I've been looking for it actually at the stores
nice.
Okay.
because I want to try all those other flavors now.
What do you-
Also, yogurt. Just so you know, Rebecca, you don't have to go look for that.
Also, yeah, you probably shouldn't drink something called Milkus.
I've had it before.
What did you think of it? Even though this is
Weird.
not a Milkus review.
Yeah.
I know.
It was mostly like I don't like opaque beverages, like just as a thing.
Dude, Armstrong's coming in with that murky water business.
You guys are like on that
Literally,
same
Patrick's
wavelength.
first thought was, it's murky in there. I don't like that.
Yeah.
Opaque beverage. That's a good way to describe it. That's the
Yeah.
If you
PC way to
open this,
describe
I
that drink.
guarantee it's going to be the same thing. So.
Yeah.
That's true.
And I don't drink milk,
Yeah.
so yeah, I'd say 4 out of 5
Oh.
bananas.
Mm.
If I could drink more of it.
Generally approved by lactose intolerant people.
Yeah, I feel like I'm not gonna like risk my health to drink the whole thing, which would
Nor
be
should
like
you.
5. I feel like, but like the small taste I had was really good, and I feel like me before lactose intolerance would have loved it.
I'm actually going to give this a 5 bananas out of 5.
Oh,
and here's
damn.
why.
Oh.
And here's why. I think I was very caught off guard by how it tasted. I thought it tasted really good. I like the Laffy Taffy flavor because I don't generally like milk. I also like the fact of the ingredients that we pointed out earlier, that they strongly show you that it has milk in it. I think that's good for your brand, that you're so straightforward in what's going
I think
on
that's
in
a
your
legal
product.
thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think most
But-
packages
Because it's an
have
allergen.
like the
But
bowls
that
at
they
the end.
highlight it. But that they highlight it again. I think that's props to you. Props to you, Bingray, for doing that. And thirdly, going back to the Milkesu, the reason I didn't like it is because I couldn't see what it was, and that knocked the rating. I like this packaging because I can't see what I'm drinking. So now I'm consuming milk, a product of something I generally don't consume, in a packaging that works for me. It's like they made this for someone like me to drink. So 5 out of 5 would recommend.
High recommendation.
Well, Rebecca, thank you so much for coming on the show, for hanging out with us. It was really great to talk to you and to get to know you. Where can people find you on the internet? I know we already did this, but actually we need to do it again for YouTube, and it just makes my whole thing easier. So
You can find me on Twitter at BeccaPlease_ and find me on Instagram at Pretty Kitty Cakes. I post there sometimes. It's baking.
So if you need more food content in your Instagram feed, Pretty Kitty Cakes, you can find the show at Janchi Show on all social platforms, or you can send us an email to janchishow@justlikemedia.com. Please drop a rating and review on iTunes. We just got our 3rd rating, and I posted about it, and my wife was like, that may have been me, but I don't remember if it was or not.
I
So
don't think
if
it
it was my
was.
wife or if
I
it was
think it
someone
was.
else, thanks for leaving it that review.
Thanks for
Really
that.
appreciate it.
Subscribe to the YouTube as well. We need to get
Yes.
up there and subscriptions.
As
After
always,
the
I am
episode.
at KJ Relke on all social platforms.
And I am at home.
And I am Banana Nate.
Neither
No,
of those
I
are your
don't-
rear
I don't know where
handles.
we're going with on that one.
That was amazing.
Yep, you can find me at the handles I've listed in our previous episodes. So go check us
Oh,
out.
damn.
Oh,
Making you work for it.
tricky. Find me at No Walk Photo.
You can find me in the club. Bottle
You
full
can,
of
find,
bub.
you can find me in the orchard picking bananas.
I will say, as we dip off of here, thank you to my sister for coming on the show. I know we just thanked you, but I will thank you again, brother to sister. I love you, and thanks for hanging out with us. Appreciate
Love
it.
you too. Thanks for having me.
Filial piety.
Filial
Nice.
piety.
I don't know if it is the same for siblings, but way to get that in there. Thanks for watching. We will see you. Wait. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you next week. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye.